And welcome to another episode of the Tar Heels Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Grant Chachere, bringing you all the latest news in regards to UNC athletics. So we have a huge day today as it is officially game day. Hopefully the Tar Heels can recover and rebound from last week's embarrassing loss at the hands of TCU. It's a huge day for Belichick and co. I mean, this has been a week of very negative press. I have criticized the program a good bit. Really, in the last 24 hours, with of course the news of all the issues that Bill Belichick has with the Patriots, and also the restriction of access to NFL scouts. Which kind of hurts the mantra of we are the 33rd NFL team. So I went heavy in that yesterday as well. It's just one of those things where it for the university that really cares about moving the program forward, and you're hearing, you had the loss to TCU, which was embarrassing, right? 48-14. It was the only game on that night. And so everyone was tuned in, had 6.1 million viewers, which was in the top 5 among the highest viewed games in college football. And look, that's great for money-wise and for the ACC and, of course, the university. But for moving the program forward, that's not great long-term. That's great for the short term, but it's not great long-term, especially when it's been open that the Tar Heels are trying to move into the SEC and the Big Ten. Like, that is a known thing. That's been reported about. Inside Carolina reported about it. And they're the first ones to report about it and became huge news. And for like the next 2-3 days, I was actually covering that topic. And also was happening at a time when you had the ACC kickoff. So it was a big news weekend for everyone that covers, not only just North Carolina athletics, but also people who cover the ACC. So it's been a big deal. And like I said, right here, that's my 3 things to improve article. That's already up. But then I did something on Bo Atkinson and NIL because apparently Bo Atkinson's move is more about NIL than actually being part of a better team and going up against more competition. It had a lot to do with NIL. I mean, the kid's from North Carolina, by the way. Bill Belichick, this is a Bill Belichick and how stubbornness could damage USA football. But actually, both these articles were from an interview that from a radio show, right, in Boston. And Albert Breer, of course, who works with us, not on SI, but Sports Illustrated, which, Alan SI is part of Sports Illustrated and yada, yada, yada. But, he's part of the Minuteman Media. He's part of Minuteman Media, right? So, he's technically a colleague of mine. And he went on there discussing, gave a lot of great content in regards to how Bill Belichick, how he really hasn't adapted to the college game that much. Of course, he talked about the Patriots because Albert Breer covered the Patriots for a very long time. He's from Boston. Matter of fact, he was actually the guy that asked Bill Belichick those questions that led to him answering on to Cincinnati. Of course, he actually got banned for that, surprisingly. So it's a very interesting. So he's very familiar with how Belichick operates. And you start talking about how, just how Bill Belichick has adapted to the college game, the issues with the scouting, and really how it affects the 33rd NFL mantra, the 33rd NFL team mantra that they've been trying to build up. And really how he recruited down the line. I also made a comparison to Saban, who, by the way, Nick Saban, famous at Alabama, would treated NFL scouts like they were the royal family, right? So, it's just a deep contrast to how Nick Saban did it, which is the way you should do things compared to Bill Belichick, who's still running UNC like it's the Patriots, even though it's a college program, right? I'm not saying you can't. Look, there's some things you can bring over from the professional game to the college game. Nick Saban did that. We've seen Bill O'Brien's done that. Pete Carroll did that at USC. So you can do some things, but you can't run a college football program like an NFL franchise. You can bring some elements of a professional franchise to a college football program, but you can't bring all of it. And I think that's something that Bill Belichick really hasn't figured out yet. And of course, this was the original story I did, basically breaking down UNC banning the Patriots, and really his beef with the Patriots is really unnecessary if you really think about it, just because it's hurting UNC in the long run. So that's kind of the recap. But also, you can check that out at the website, on our website. Just look up si.com/college/UNC, and you can find all the latest content in regards to UNC athletics, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, you name it. And it's all up on the site. Me and Jeremiah have been putting up as much content as possible. Also, we should have some new people coming in. I know I've been saying that. It's been a little bit longer of a process, but we're finally able to figure it out. But so we're gonna have a lot more. And of course, make sure to check out all Caleb Sis articles about recruiting. But moving off of the controversy in that, and in regards to Belichick and the Patriots and NFL scouts, you name it, and I've already written enough about it. I want to talk about the game today, right? And so UNC is going up against Charlotte. They'll be traveling to Charlotte to take on the 49ers, and it will not be in the Bank of America Stadium. It will actually be at Charlotte's home field, which has 15,000 people in it. It's the smallest stadium that Belichick has ever coached in, which would be a very interesting ordeal. Last week, Charlotte played against App State, where they lost 34-11. And really, the game was kind of close. It was actually close for a little while. But unfortunately, but what happened was it was 3-0 at the end of the first quarter. But then the second quarter, App State pulled away. They scored 17 unanswered points, and then proceeded 27 unanswered points if you include the third quarter as well, and went on to win 34-11. Charlotte, they allowed 32 first downs, 21 passing, 10 rushing. They allowed the Mountaineers to have 404 passing yards compared to 404 passing yards, 182 rushing yards, which equaled up to 586 yards. The 49ers had 218. So they struggled on both sides of the ball, similar to how the Tar Heels played against TCU yesterday. Now, the score, yes, the score is 34-11, but once again, I said it was relatively close for two quarters. The UNC versus TCU game, hypothetically it was close because if you look at the score, TCU didn't have a 2-touchdown lead until the pick six, but really TCU probably should have been up more just because UNC after that first drive stalled completely, and it was very clear that TCU was a better team. And then once it started piling on points, it became very clear. But the interesting thing about Charlotte is that the quarterback is Connor Harrell. Connor Harrell was a member of UNC's team last season. He actually was a starter, ironically, against the 49ers. And last season, he had he went 16 for 25 for 219 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also had 9 rushes for 39 yards and a touchdown in the 38-20 victory for the Tar Heels. But now he transferred after the year was over. He went over to Charlotte, and in the game against App State, he went 13 for 24, which is 54.2%. And he also had 142 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. So he's the starting quarterback over there. CJ Stokes was the leading rusher for Charlotte in the last game. He had 15 carries for 49 yards. No touchdowns, however. Justin Olsen, who also is another member, who also is a former member of UNC. He played for the Tar Heels from 2019 to 2022. He had 10 catches for 147 yards during his time with the Tar Heels for 4 years. He transferred to Middle Tennessee in 2023. We had 43 catches for 450 yards and a touchdown before he transferred to Charlotte last season. So if you do the math, 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24. He has played in college football for 7 years. So he's basically the Van Wilder of the Charlotte 49ers. I mean, that's basically what he is. But in the last game, he had 2 catches for 56 yards. And you're probably the number one target for the 49ers in this one. But there's also 5 members of UNC's team that is currently up. Well, there's 5 members of Charlotte's team that used to be members of the Tar Heels. Connor Harrell, of course, I just mentioned. Justin Olson, who I also just mentioned. But there's also Jacarius Conley, former 4-star DB that was a part of UNC's 2020 class, which was really the first full recruiting class for Mac Brown. If you think about it in terms of being up there for a full season. He transferred, so he's there for 2022. He transferred to Charlotte in 2023, where he missed the entire season. But then in 2024, he appeared in the final 6 games. He had 26 tackles, a tackle for 1.5 tackles for loss, a sack, and a forced fumble. And in the last game, he had 8 tackles with a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. So he was a major factor in that game. And then he also had an 87.3 defensive rating. And he also had 89.3 rating in coverage, according to PFF. By the way, nobody on UNC's defense in the last game against TCU even got to 80. The highest was 76.3 by Andrew Simpson. So, really good player. Somebody to watch out for. And then got 2 more. You got Curtis Simpson, who was a defensive end prospect for the 2024 class. He's now on Charlotte. And you also have kicker Reed Boyd, who did a good bit of kickoff specialist stuff for UNC last year. Now he's the starting kicker for Charlotte. And this is what I'm kind of scared of going into this game. For starters, I'm worried about how UNC recovers after last week's game, which was lost in embarrassing fashion. You lost 48-14. TCU had 542 total yards compared to UNC's 222. UNC did not look sharp last week. They looked deflated. I mean, it was just a really, really bad season opener for UNC. I mean, it really was. So there's that aspect. How do they rebound off of a embarrassing loss? And then number 2, how do they respond to the blowback, to the media pushback? I don't think any of these players look, and there was some negative media reaction to UNC last year, but it was more criticism from local media. This year is not only, look, there's some local media criticism, and of course there's always going to be after a loss like that. And that's part of the business that we're in. I was critical too. That's part of the business. However, not only getting local criticism, but you're also getting national criticism. You're getting criticism. You're gonna get it from Boston media, of course. I mean, they are laying it on Belichick right now. They are enjoying this like a kid enjoying chocolate cake. They love the fact that UNC lost against TCU like that. They love it because they want to pile on Belichick. But it's from everybody. It's from ESPN. It's from CBS. It's from the Rich Eisen show. You have Bill Burr comparing Bill Belichick being the head coach at UNC to Joe Namath being on the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, Joe Namath did actually play on the Los Angeles Rams. He played. That was like his final years of being in the NFL. It's like Michael Jordan. It's like Michael Jordan playing like Bill Belichick, and that's a perfect comparison because I even said Bill Belichick being the head coach of UNC is like Michael Jordan being on the Wizards, but except on steroids. You know what I'm saying? Because he went down he was a head coach of the Patriots basically my entire life, and then now he's a head coach at a collegiate program, one that is North Carolina. So you had all this criticism, right, from that game. But then You add on to it on when Thursday's news broke out that North Carolina banned the Patriots scouts from even scouting the players on the team. And also the limited access the scouts around the league even have in general. And I wonder what the players are thinking now, because a lot of these players, remember, they probably came because they want to be a part of the 33rd NFL team, right? They want to prepare for the NFL. They want to get a shot to go to the NFL. What a better way to do that is to come to the program that is being coached by Bill Belichick, one of the greatest player developers in football history, regardless of level, one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history, but also arguably the greatest defensive strategist in NFL history. Right? I know a lot of people will say, well, it's more about Brady, which, to be fair, Brady did a lot, right? Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, that's here, there. And really, to me, he was more of the offensive coordinator than Josh McDaniels, some other coaches that were calling the plays for the Patriots. Because Tom Brady is a really smart quarterback. I know that often goes to Peyton Manning because Peyton Manning's knowledge of the game is otherworldly, but people forget how smart Tom Brady is. He's a really, really smart quarterback. And so that's why Bill Belichick, the only thing he had to deal was defense, because he knew that you have a guy like Tom Brady, right? And of course, even when Tom Brady was, in this, because first few years he was more like a Brock Purdy type quarterback, and then he became Tom Brady. I would probably say around 2007 when he threw 50 touchdown passes and won the MVP, and they had a 16 in the season, blah 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 blah. But early on in Brady's career, it was Bill Belichick calling the plays. Even in 2019, where Brady probably played the worst playoff game in his life, he struggled in that game. Belichick called his ass off. He called his ass off because the Rams had a top 5 offense, and he completely shut them down. The same way he shut them down in 2001 when the Rams had the greatest show on turf. Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. Belichick is one of the greatest defensive play callers in history. But it's just one of those. He's really becoming a joke, and I'm not saying he's a joke, but to people around the country, he is. And I wonder what his players are thinking like, because now he is limiting access to guys. Maybe let's say if somebody's really interested in Thaddeus Dixon, Thaddeus Dixon is borderline. Let's say he's a borderline, drafted. Let's say he's a late round draft pick, right? And there's scouts from around the league, say the Panthers, the Green Bay Packers, the San Francisco 49ers, and the New York Giants, just throwing out random teams. And they really want to see Thaddeus Dixon. But if they're only allowed to see them practice for 15 minutes before getting kicked out, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go over the Duke and NC State, because they know they get as much access as possible. They know they can get film. They can watch film before practice. They know they can see most of the practice. They can ask the coaches what are strengths and weaknesses, how he is as a person. Is he a natural-born leader? You name it. They'll just go over there. They're not worried about Thaddeus Dixon. Oh, well, they're just like, all right, Thaddeus, just do your thing. We didn't really get to see you that much. We'll stay in contact with you. And we'll catch you later. And then they're spending maybe an entire day at Duke, and then the next day they're spending an entire day at NC State. Or even ECU. Shoot. And I brought up Saban before. You know what Saban did when he was the head coach of Alabama? He would have an assistant, right? He would have one of his, lower level assistants, whatever. So for example, let's say the scouts want to watch film before practice. Say they had that morning practice, whatever, and the scouts want to watch film. He would send somebody over at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to let them in. By the way, I just want a reminder that Saban and Belichick are really close friends, but that's here and there. So I'm surprised Saban I'm pretty sure Saban may have told him that, but I think Saban also wants to let Belichick do his thing. But it's just incredible. So I wonder what the players are thinking like that. I wonder how the players are going to respond to that. Will they play as hard now? Well, they won't. And I think that's something that I'm kind of worried about. But also I'm worried about the other things, like the missed tackles. 19 missed tackles against UNC. There's no offensive identity. Me and Jeremiah have talked about that before. It's just, there's a lot of stuff to worry about. I mean, Henry Rutledge. Actually, that was the first person. I think that was the first person that Belichick announced when he was kind of previewing Charlotte. And if Belichick mentions your name and you're one of the first people that get mentioned, he's probably a really good player. And that's what Connor Rutledge is. Henry Rutledge is. I want to say Connor Rutledge. I went to high school with somebody named Connor Rutledge. I don't know why I called Henry Rutledge, Connor Rutledge. That's why I kind of messed up there. But anyway, he's a dangerous returner. Last season, he led the American Conference with 605 kick return yards and 24 total returns. That's a 25.2 average. It was the fifth most yards in a single season in program history. He appeared in all 12 games as the team's primary return specialist, and also drew one start at running back at Indiana. He also ranked inside the top 25 nationally for return average. He also posted a season-long kick return of 79 yards, the fourth longest return in program history at Navy. And he also tallied 13 punt returns for 48 yards, 10 catches for 82 yards, and one touchdown, which was scored against North Carolina, and 11 rushes for 72 yards. He's a very dangerous returner. So he's another player you need to watch out for as well. He's from the Charlotte area. And that's another thing too. He's from the Charlotte area. There's a lot of guys on Charlotte that are, of course, from North Carolina. Obviously. But there's also five members of the Tar Heels, five members of the 49ers that used to be Tar Heels. So how much more? So you're going up against UNC is going up against a Charlotte team that is looking. UNC is going against a Charlotte team that has not only players from the Tar Heels and may have been rejected by Belichick, but you also have players that are from North Carolina, and they want to beat the flagship university on their home field, which seats 15,000. That's a big deal for the program. North Carolina is actually the first in-state program from a Power 4 conference to go to play Charlotte, the Charlotte 49ers, at Jerry Richardson Stadium. So it's a big game for the 49ers. This is a big game. For North Carolina, this is just another game. But for the 49ers, this is a huge deal. So this is going to be their Super Bowl. So we already know they're going to play their hardest. I know that for a fact that this is going to be the Super Bowl. And not only that, you have a Tar Heel team that we don't know how they're going to react to all of the negative media blowback from this week. So, it's just this is a dangerous game for North Carolina. Matter of fact, I just want to point this out. Before the TCU game, North Carolina was a 21-point favorite over Charlotte. Since then, I believe it has dropped to just under 2 touchdowns. I got to double check that. But I remember seeing something like that because, of course, the lines always change, right? So right now, they are a 13.5-point favorite. They're originally a 3-touchdown favorite. So, what does Vegas know about it? Vegas expects North Carolina to win, but look, North Carolina's an upset alert. I'm not saying I think North Carolina's going to win, but they're going up against a team that's going to treat this game like a Super Bowl because the games that are being played in Chapel Hill is being played in Charlotte at their own stadium, which seats 15,000 people in it. That is the perfect storm for an upset. And for North Carolina, you can't afford to get upset. You cannot afford it at all to get upset because now you're sitting at 0-2. The next two games, I mean, Richmond, look at yes, that is an FCS opponent, but Richmond is a solid FCS program too. I mean, they've won an FCS national championship. They have. They've been a very successful program at the FCS level. And then, of course, you got to travel to Orlando, which would be your first true road game, in my opinion, because you're going to be playing in Charlotte. It's 50,000 seat stadium, and I believe there's going to be a lot of UNC fans there. So it might be a de facto UNC home game for all I care. But going to Orlando to play UCF, and yes, UCF, they struggle a little bit against Jacksonville State. Now, Jacksonville State is also a solid mid-major program. They won the Conference USA Championship the year before. But traveling to Orlando to play UCF at their stadium, which by the way it's called the Bounce House. It was its nickname at first. Like at first, the stadium was called Bright House Network Stadium, but its nickname was named the Bounce House, and then that became their official name. And the reason why it's called the Bounce House is because that place is really, really tough to play. I've said this before. I've written about this in the schedule breakdown for UCF earlier last month when we were previewing the season and everything like that. And UCF is 85-30 at home since that stadium opened up in 2007. And not only that, if you look at they played 4 conference championships in that stadium. 4. And they won all 4. So that, I mean, like I said, how this game against Charlotte's going to be their Super Bowl. Same thing with UCF. You have a Power 4 program entering this. Well, UCF's now a Power 4 program. But you get what I'm saying, right? You're going against a pretty well-known program in North Carolina. It's being coached by Bill Belichick. It's going to be a big game for them, especially since they're trying to rebound off of after last season's 4-8 season. And they also have Scott Prospect as the head coach. So it's a big game for them. Like, if you lose this game against Charlotte, I really do believe that UNC could be 1-3 entering conference play. And I've said this before. I said this on the last podcast with Jeremiah. I literally said that if North Carolina is 3-1 going to conference play, they're going to make a bowl game, because I think there's 3 winnable games on their schedule. Like 3 easily winnable games on their schedule in ACC play, because ACC schedule is not really that tough. But if you enter conference play 1-3, that's going to be a much, much larger mountain to climb. It really is. So, I mean, this is a must-win game for North Carolina, which is crazy to say because it's Charlotte, but it is. That's the reality that the Tar Heels are dealing with, especially after a bad way to open the season. I guess, yes, the TCU team is good, but UNC was not even close to being competitive with the Torrent Frogs other than the first round of the game. But anyway, but there's 3 things I also want to go over really quickly. 3 keys to the game for UNC. Number 1, be physical up front. UNC averaged 2.8 yards per carry as a team. For the running back room, 1.8. They got to do better in the run game, and they also have to be more physical up front. They had 0 sacks against TCU, and they had little to no pressure on what's his name? What's the quarterback's name? What was the guy's name? Josh Hoover. I'm sorry. Everyone killed UNC that day. I was going through a bunch of names in my head, but they can stop Josh Hoover. They can stop Jordan Pryor. They couldn't stop anybody. They could not stop anybody that day. It was just embarrassing. It was an embarrassing showing for UNC. I can't recall a time where I've seen a program get embarrassed. Look, I covered LSU, and there were some games where LSU got flat out embarrassed. I went to the LSU. I covered the LSU Alabama game last year, but even that game was competitive through the third quarter, and then Alabama, of course, blew them out for the rest of the game. That game, other than the first drive, TCU dominated. I mean, absolutely dominated North Carolina. Not North Carolina. I mean, yeah. I mean, just I have a lot of thoughts in my head right now. I have a lot of thoughts in my head. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, it was just an embarrassing showing for the Tar Heels. I mean, it really was. And you had zero pressure up front. You can protect Gio Lopez or Max Johnson. You can get the run game going. And how can the offense get going if you can't stop anybody? But Jordan Dwyer had 9 catches for 136 yards. The 9 catches for 136 yards and the touchdown all came against Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen had allowed Jordan Dwyer to catch 9 balls and 9 targets for 136 yards and a touchdown. And also, keep in mind this too, and this is even the more egregious thing. TCU had 258 rushing yards, 7.4 yards per carry, and 141 of those yards came after contact. They averaged 4.0 yards after contact. I mean, they could not stop the run at all. So that's the first thing. And that really is a combination of you have to be physical up front and also wrap up. And the other thing is you have to identify your offense. What is your offense? Last week, the reason why the first drive looked so crisp is because, well, for starters, it was scripted. They knew what they were going to call before their drive. And then, of course, the rest of the game is kind of a free-for-all. But they called plays that fit what Gio Lopez could do, right? Which involved running, RPO, play action. They did a very good job calling that first drive, but the rest of the game, because of all the snapping issues that the offensive line had, I mean, they had a hard time trying to snap it out of the shotgun formation. They played pro-style offense, and that's when their offense sputtered. And then when Max Johnson came in, when Gio Lopez got hurt, the offense looked fine because that offense fit Max Johnson. So the players you have on the field, you have to figure out what benefits the players because you want to fit their skill sets. You don't hide their weaknesses, showcase their strengths. That's what you have to do. Play around their strengths, not play against their weaknesses, if you know what I mean. And not only that, find your playmakers too. You have to find your playmakers. Jordan Shipp showed that he can be a playmaker. 4 catches for 84 yards last week. Find them. You have to find your playmakers. You have to I think this is the best time for UNC to evaluate because they really to be fair to Belichick, they didn't have a whole lot of time to evaluate because you had a 1 month to prepare for the season with 70 new players, 40 of which came after the spring. And then not only that, you only had 2 weeks of hitting. And that showed in that game against CSU where he had 19 tackles. Really, it says PFF graded out 19 missed tackles, but to be honest with you, it probably could have been more because there's a lot of missed tackles. So, yeah, it's just, this is the best time to evaluate for North Carolina. Find your playmakers, find what fits the strengths of the team. This is the perfect time to do so. But if this is a close game, it'll be much harder to evaluate because it's going to be a close game. So hopefully North Carolina can pull out the win. That way we can kind of go back to some positive reactions instead of some negative ones because I really don't like negative reactions. I don't like to write negative stories so much, although they do give you a lot of great content. And now I can do a good job of breaking down everything that went wrong. What I love about covering sports. You can break down what went right and what went wrong. But to be honest with you, you don't want all the negative. You don't want to be too negative, right? Because maybe it's because we want good stories to end well. We all want the happy ending, but sometimes you can't get the happy ending. And that's life. And, I'm not saying that I hate writing negative stories, but it's not like you don't want to be negative all the time. I mean, it's kind of one of those positivity things I really believe in. positivity and how it carries over. But I mean, right now we're on this program. It's not really a whole lot of positivity. But anyway, that's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Tar Heels on SI. Also do the same thing on Twitter for me. Last name, first name. Make sure to go check out my Twitter page for all the latest updates. And then also make sure to go make sure to go follow our Facebook page as well at North Carolina Tar Heels on SI. Thank you guys so much for watching. And the game will be on at 7 o'clock. It's going to be on ESPN Plus. So if you don't have the ESPN subscription, I suggest you do so, or you borrow it from somebody else because there is a fee to pay. I'll see you guys later, and you guys have a great rest of your college football Saturday.